Welcome, travelers of the universe, to Beyond the Stars, where stories stretch far across galaxies and the heart speaks louder than words. Tonight, we embark on a journey of courage, destiny, and love that defies the boundaries of worlds. Imagine you're stranded on an alien planet, saving a mysterious girl who whispers a promise worth returning for. What awaits at the edge of this cosmic romance? Will love triumph when faced with the unknown? Settle in, dim your lights, and let your imagination soar, because this is one story you won't want to leave until the very last star has faded. Chapter 1, The Promise Made in Fire and Stone. The crash came with fire and screaming metal. Jason Carter's escape pod tore through the thin atmosphere of Proxima Centauri b, its emergency thrusters long since burned out. Alarms blared, a klaxon screaming in his ears as the pod spiraled toward the rust-red surface of the alien world. He was 14, alone and absolutely certain he was about to die. And then, silence. The impact rattled his bones. Everything went black for a moment. When Jason opened his eyes, he was slumped in a broken harness, smoke curling from fractured panels. His heart thudded against his ribs. The emergency beacon was offline, no comms, no GPS. Nothing but a jagged red sky and the merciless twin suns overhead, burning down on a landscape of razor rock and ash-colored dust. He staggered out of the wreckage, coughing. The training vids hadn't prepared him for this. Proxima b was barely habitable, dry, hot, and hostile to human biology. His emergency suit filtered the worst of the toxins, but the heat still baked him, and the silence pressed down like a weight. 3 weeks passed. Jason scavenged from the pine, rationed every drop of water, avoided the spiked flora, and hid from whatever howled in the canyons at night. Hunger gnawed at his belly, but it was fear that truly wore him down. Fear that no one would come. Fear that he'd vanish into red dust and heat, and no one would ever know what happened to him. Then came the day everything changed. He was scaling a bluff, trying to get a better view for a signal flare, when he heard voices, rough, low, and angry. He crept forward, heart pounding. What he saw made him freeze. 3 hulking figures, mercenaries by the look of their patchwork armor and heavy rifles, were surrounding a girl. She was like nothing Jason had ever seen. Her skin shimmered golden orange beneath the twin suns, marked with glowing lines that pulsed faintly across her bare shoulders and arms. Her long, silver-white hair whipped around her face as she backed against a cliff wall, eyes darting between the men. Azurian, he would learn later. But in that moment, all he knew was that she was alone, cornered, and terrified. "Pretty little alien," one of the mercs sneered, reaching for her. "She'll fetch a fortune on the slave circuits." Jason ducked behind a boulder, his training telling him to stay hidden, stay quiet. But when he saw her eyes so human yet ringed with a strange, glowing violet, something inside him snapped. She looked like she was about to cry, like she had already accepted what was coming. "No, not like this." Jason grabbed a fist-sized rock and hurled it. "Hey," he shouted, voice cracking, "pick on someone your own size, you rotting jackasses." The mercenaries turned, startled to see a scrawny human teen standing defiantly atop a rock outcrop. One raised a weapon. Too late. The girl moved. She was a blur of grace and fury. In a single fluid motion, she disarmed one, elbowed another in the throat, and swept the third off his feet with a glowing arc of her leg. 2 hit the ground unconscious. The third turned toward Jason with murder in his eyes. Jason dove, years of schoolyard dodgeball and bullying making him fast. The mercenary lunged, but then collapsed, a glowing boot print smoking on the back of his helmet. It was over. Jason rolled over, heart hammering, dust choking his lungs. She stood over him, her silhouette etched against the bright sky. Her black clothing clung to her athletic frame, and her chest rose and fell with controlled breaths. She studied him like he was some strange creature. "You have courage, little human," she said, her voice melodic, tinged with an accent that rolled the words like silk. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless. Jason could barely breathe. She was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. She knelt, her silver hair brushing against his cheek. Before he could say a word, she leaned in and pressed her lips lightly to his skin, just a kiss on the cheek, but it seared like a brand. "Come back," she whispered against his ear. when you've become a man. He blinked. What? She stood, eyes gleaming. The reward will be worth it. And then, just like that, she vanished into the rocky terrain, a phantom in the heat. 3 days later, colonial forces rescued Jason. They found him dehydrated, sunburned, and delirious, muttering about a silver-haired alien and a promise made in sunlight and stone. Most thought he imagined it, a hallucination born of trauma and heat stroke. But Jason never forgot, and he never stopped preparing for the day he would return, not as a boy, but as the man she had asked for. Chapter 2. Return to Proxima Centauri. The twin suns of Proxima Centauri b blazed overhead, on the Nkama, casting long, jagged shadows across the cracked red terrain. Dust spiraled in lazy cyclones as the colonial forces dropship descended, its engines flaring like artificial comets. Inside the cockpit, Jason Carter adjusted the collar of his exosuit, his gloved fingers trembling. Not from fear, but anticipation. He was back. 10 years. 10 years of silence, of wondering if she'd meant it, if that moment under twin suns had been real, or just the fever dream of a lost boy. Approaching designated coordinates, the ship's AI announced in its flat, emotionless voice. Atmospheric stability within tolerances. Touchdown in 30 seconds. Jason exhaled slowly. His reflection in the viewport stared back at him. Older, harder. The once scrawny teenager had been replaced by a man with defined muscles, a square jaw, and eyes that had seen more than their fair share of combat. His brown hair was still wild, though now it was controlled chaos, not boyish neglect. The scars on his knuckles and the metal tucked in his chest pocket whispered of campaigns fought and friends lost. He hadn't returned as a boy chasing fantasy. He had returned as a man honoring a vow. Landing sequence initiated. The ship thudded softly onto the planet's surface, a metallic hiss escaping the hydraulics as the landing gear settled. Jason grabbed his gear and stepped onto the ramp as it descended. Heat hit him like a wall, thick and dry, the same furnace wind he remembered. The rust-red rocks stretched endlessly into the horizon, familiar and alien all at once. He stood at the edge of the ramp for a heartbeat longer, the silence almost reverent. Then he started walking. The AI had pinpointed an Azurian settlement roughly 2 kilometers east. Jason crested a low ridge and stopped. It was nothing like the makeshift outpost he remembered. Sleek towers of dark stone and gleaming crystal rose from the cracked ground like alien trees. Thin spires pulsed with internal energy, and shield domes shimmered faintly around the perimeter. The Azurians had built a city here, elegant, functional, utterly otherworldly. Guard posts dotted the edge, manned by tall figures in tight, iridescent armor. One of them raised a hand. "Identify yourself, human," came the crisp, accented challenge. Jason lifted both hands slowly, palms open. "Name's Jason Carter. I'm here looking for someone." A pause. "Many of our kind are female. Be specific." Where Jason hesitated. "She has silver hair, skin like molten gold, markings that glow across her arms. She saved me once, 10 years ago." There was a flicker of recognition behind the guard's visor. Then a quick exchange in Azurian, a melodic language full of layered tones and pulses. "You speak of Commander Serenia," the guard finally said. His voice held a new note, caution, curiosity. "Wait here." Jason's heart thudded. She's alive. Minutes passed. The suns baked the back of his neck, but he barely noticed. His mind was racing with memories. Her voice, her eyes, the kiss on his cheek like fire and electricity. The gates parted. She walked out. Jason's breath caught. Serenia hadn't changed. She still moved with that effortless grace, every step purposeful, like gravity bent around her. Her hair was longer now, braided down her back, catching silver light with every movement. The black tactical uniform she wore hugged her in all the right places. But it was her eyes that undid him, those deep violet rings glowing faintly, watching him with unreadable emotion. She stopped a few steps away. "So," she said softly, voice unchanged, "you returned." Jason swallowed, suddenly unsure if his legs could hold him. "I made a promise." A slow smile tugged at her lips. "Yes, you did. And now, you're a man." She stepped closer. Her scent, exotic and electric, hit him like a memory. "The question is," she murmured, voice low enough that only he could hear, "what kind of man?" He opened his mouth, but the sound that escaped was barely a whisper. "You know my name. I've known it since the moment you threw that rock," Serenia replied, amusement flickering in her gaze. "Do you know mine?" "Serenia," he breathed. She laughed, musical and soft. "Good. Follow me, Jason Carter." They walked through the gate, the air shimmered behind them. Azurian eyes followed them, some with suspicion, others with curiosity. Jason couldn't tell which unnerved him more. "They don't get many humans here, do they?" he asked, trying to keep his tone light. "They've seen humans," Serenia said, "but none invited as an honored guest, and certainly none who earned the right of convergence." Jason blinked. "The what now?" They stopped before a circular structure, its stone walls etched with glowing patterns that reminded him of the ones on her skin. She pressed her hand to a symbol. The door slid open with a hum. "10 years ago," she said, stepping inside, "when I told you to return as a man, I wasn't merely being poetic. Among my people, when one saves another's life, they earn the right to attempt the rite of convergence, a sacred trial of worthiness." Jason followed her into the chamber, the door closing behind them with a hiss. "Worthiness for what?" he asked, his voice almost hoarse. Serenia turned, her eyes glowing like twin stars. "For me," she said. Chapter 3, The Trials Begin. The chamber's walls glowed with a soft azure hue, pulsing gently like the slow beat of a heart. Jason stood just inside the threshold, his eyes adjusting to the light. The air was cooler here, laced with something floral and metallic, a scent that made his skin tingle. He turned in a slow circle, taking in the symbols etched into every surface, spirals, lines, and abstract patterns that seemed to shift when he wasn't looking directly at them. Serenia stood in the center, her hands clasped behind her back, posture straight. In the soft light, the markings on her skin shimmered like living circuitry. Her presence filled the room, commanding but not oppressive. She was a woman used to power, yet something about the way she watched him now was personal. "This is the chamber of initiation," she said. "No outsiders have stood here before, like not even the humans we've allied with in trade." Jason ran a hand across one of the stone walls. The surface was smooth, warm, almost "And I'm the first?" he asked. She nodded. "The first human to be offered the right of convergence. The first to be deemed worthy." Jason raised an eyebrow. "I haven't even done anything yet." Serenia stepped closer, close enough that he could see the fine lines of bioluminescence across her cheekbones. "You have. 10 years ago, you risked your life for me, without hesitation, without expectation. And since then, we've watched." Jason stiffened. "You've watched me?" She gave a faint smile. "You rose through the ranks of your military. You saved lives during the Rillian uprising. You turned down promotions to stay on the front lines. You trained harder, pushed farther than anyone in your unit. That wasn't random effort, was it?" Jason hesitated. "I guess I wanted to be ready for this, for you." Her smile widened. "And now you are. But readiness is only part of it. The right will test more than strength. It will test your nature done." Jason crossed his arms. "So what exactly does this rite involve?" Serenia turned toward a small pedestal rising from the chamber floor. With emotion, she activated it. Holographic projections spun into the air. 3 concentric circles, each marked with Azurian glyphs. "There are 3 trials," she said. "Reflection, adaptation, union." Jason studied the glowing rings. "Let me guess. Each one harder than the last?" "Yes," she said. "But difficulty isn't the point. These trials were designed to reveal truth, to expose who you are when no one's watching, when fear claws at your thoughts, when the world turns against you." Jason met her eyes. "You make it sound like I might not survive." Serenia didn't blink. "Some haven't." A chill crept down his spine, but then her hand reached for his. The touch was light yet charged, like static dancing across his skin. Her golden orange fingers curled around his palm. "I believe you can," she said softly. "But belief isn't enough. You must believe it too." Jason nodded, swallowing the knot forming in his throat. When do we begin? Dawn, she said. The first trial, reflection, is not a fight of body, but of mind. It will force you to confront your deepest fears. You cannot prepare for it because preparation would defeat its purpose. What if I fail? Then you walk away, alive but unchanged, and I remain as I am. Her voice had softened at the end. For the first time, he saw something behind her confidence, vulnerability, maybe even fear. Not of him, but for him. Jason squeezed her hand gently. I didn't come this far to walk away. They stood in silence for a moment. In the quiet, he could feel her pulse against his palm, fast, steady, warm. The room no longer felt alien. It felt like a threshold, a door to something new. She finally released his hand. Come, there is one more place I want to show you before nightfall. They exited the chamber and walked in silence through the city. The architecture of the Azurian settlement struck Jason as both ancient and futuristic. Stone and crystal harmonized with subtle technology humming beneath every surface. Azurians passed them in silence, nodding respectfully at Serenia, some casting curious glances at Jason. None said a word, but the weight of their attention followed him. They reached a balcony carved into the side of a cliff. Below, the valley spread in layered tiers of red stone and bioluminescent flora. Twin suns hovered low on the horizon, casting copper-gold light across the city. Serenia leaned on the railing. This was where I stood the day they told me you'd been rescued. I watched the sky for hours. I didn't know if you'd live or forget me. Jason stepped beside her, and I couldn't forget you if I tried. She turned her head, studied him with those violet-ringed eyes. Then show me, tomorrow in the chamber, show me the man you've become. He nodded once, firm. I will. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The suns dipped lower, and the first stars emerged in the alien sky. And somewhere deep within the city, the chamber prepared itself. Chapter 4. Trial 1. The Chamber of Reflection. Jason stood at the center of the circular chamber just as the first rays of Proxima B's twin suns filtered through the translucent ceiling. The floor beneath him was etched with the same glowing patterns he had seen on Serenia's skin, except now they pulsed in a slow, rhythmic cadence, as if syncing to his heartbeat. Serenia stood outside the chamber, separated from him by a transparent barrier. This chamber will show you nothing except what already lives inside you, she said, her voice steady but solemn. Memories, fears, regrets, some buried so deep you may not even recognize them. But the chamber will. Jason nodded. Sounds like a therapy session on nightmare mode. Her lips curved faintly. You joke now. That will change. With a silent signal from the elders observing above, the chamber activated. The lights dimmed, the floor began to glow more brightly, and a fine mist crept up from hidden vents. It was cool, strangely weightless. Jason blinked as the fog swallowed everything around him, walls, floor, even the sound of his own breathing. Then the world changed. He stood in a war zone. The red sands were replaced by blackened earth. Smoke billowed across a scorched battlefield. Charred armor and fallen bodies littered the ground, and the air was thick with the smell of plasma burns and blood. Jason staggered backward instinctively, his boots sinking into mud that hadn't existed a second ago. No, he muttered. Not this memory. But it was too late. The illusion was complete. He heard the cries first, distorted, desperate. Then came the shouting. Gunfire. Explosions. The memory slammed into him like a freight train. This was Outpost Varela, the mission where half his unit died in an ambush. He had lived through it, but barely, and the guilt never left him. A familiar voice rose through the chaos. Carter, you left us! Jason turned to see Captain Reyes, his former commanding officer, long dead, standing just feet away, his chest riddled with plasma wounds. I followed orders, Jason shouted. I got the intel back. It's the only reason we won that campaign. You left us to die, another voice accused. More forms appeared. His squad mates, their faces twisted in pain and betrayal. You ran, one whispered. No, Jason said, clenching his fists. I didn't. But even as he spoke, the landscape shifted again. Now he stood in a dim living room. Familiar. Too familiar. The air smelled of stale coffee and cigarette ash. A man stood by the door packing a duffel bag. His face was lined, tired, and painfully recognizable. "Dad?" Jason whispered. The man didn't look at him. "I'm leaving." Jason was 8 again, frozen in place, watching the door that would never reopen. "Why?" the child version of him asked. His father didn't answer, just hoisted the bag and muttered, "You're not worth staying for." The words sliced deep. Jason shook his head. "You left because you were weak," he said aloud. "Not because of me. That was never on me." The figure evaporated like smoke. Jason exhaled, shaking, sweat dripping from his brow. The mist swirled again. Now he stood in the Azurian chamber. Serenia faced him, surrounded by tall Azurian males. She was laughing. "You really thought I meant it?" she said, voice cruel and mocking. "That I'd ever choose a human?" The others joined in the laughter, their glowing markings mocking him with every pulse. Jason's gut twisted. This wasn't war. This wasn't abandonment. This was doubt. But then he looked closer. Serenia's eyes were wrong. Cold, flat. They lacked the depth, the warmth, the weight she always carried, even in silence. "This isn't you," he said, voice firmer now. The illusion Serenia tilted her head. "Did?" "No," he said. "The real you doesn't need to belittle others, and she doesn't laugh at pain." The false Serenia snarled, and her face twisted, contorting into something monstrous. Jason didn't flinch. He stepped forward through her fading form, and suddenly he saw it, a small panel in the wall, faintly pulsing. The glow was wrong. Its pattern didn't match the rest of the chamber. Military training surged to the front of his mind. "That's a foreign device. Hidden tech. Someone had tampered with the trial." Without hesitation, Jason crossed the room and ripped the device free. The mist vanished instantly. He was back. The elders stared down at him from the observation level, some in shock, some in quiet approval. Serenia pushed into the chamber, eyes wide with something between concern and awe. "Jason," she said softly, rushing to his side. He held up the device. "Someone tried to sabotage the trial. This thing, it was amplifying the illusions, driving them past safe limits." One of the elders descended and took the device, her face unreadable. "We will investigate this immediately." Serenia looked him over. "Are you hurt?" Jason shook his head, still catching his breath. "No, but I saw some things I wasn't ready for." "And yet," she said, brushing a strand of hair from his damp forehead, "you endured. You saw through the illusions. You faced your past. That's more than many of us achieve." Jason managed a wry smile. "Then I passed?" The eldest nodded. "You did more than pass. You revealed deception. You remained true." As the others exited the chamber, Serenia lingered. She touched his hand, lightly at first, then more firmly. "I meant what I said, Jason," she whispered. "When I asked you to return as a man, I knew you had the strength. But what you showed today..." Her markings pulsed gently against his skin. That was something deeper, wiser. He looked into her eyes, heart still pounding. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" "Yes," she said. "Tomorrow the second trial begins, and it won't be your mind that's tested this time. It'll be your body." Chapter 5, Trial 2, The Living Forge. The entrance to the second trial loomed before Jason like the maw of some ancient beast. The structure was dome-shaped, formed from obsidian-like rock laced with living crystal veins that pulsed with heat and light. An energy shimmer surrounded it like a mirage, distorting the air with waves of rising temperature. They called it the Living Forge. Jason stood before the elders once more. The chamber behind them was different from the one before. This one hummed with life and menace. The eldest Azurian, her markings glowing in sharp geometric patterns, addressed him. "This chamber replicates the sacred grounds of Astralis, the proving place of our ancestors. To complete this trial, you must retrieve the emblem of convergence from its center and return here, without aid and within one planetary rotation." Jason nodded. He understood. 1 day and night cycle on Proxima B. About 30 Earth hours. "Your suit's environmental systems must be deactivated," the elder added. "No filtration, no cooling, no artificial enhancements." Jason frowned. "That atmosphere is toxic to humans." "Adapt," the elder said simply. Serenia stepped forward. Her face was unreadable, but her violet-ringed eyes betrayed concern. Jason, you can still walk away. No one would question your choice. He shook his head. Not after everything, not now. Without another word, he reached behind his neck and disabled his suit's filtration system. Immediately, the heat clamped around his body like a vice. His breathing grew shallow, lungs protesting the metallic sting in the air. The elder gestured, "Begin." The outer wall of the dome slid open with a hiss. Jason stepped inside. Heat hit him like a physical force. The air shimmered red. Towering alien plants with leathery leaves twisted toward the sky, pulsing faintly with an inner glow. Some recoiled at his presence, others extended thorny tendrils that quivered as he passed. The ground was soft but unstable, like walking on a sponge coated in ash. With every step, it shifted, forcing him to constantly rebalance. He checked his wrist readout. Internal temperature, the already spiking, vision slightly blurred. 1 hour in. Just keep moving. By the fourth hour, Jason was drenched in sweat. His breath came in shallow, controlled huffs. He ditched the upper portion of his suit for mobility, wrapping a strip of cloth around his mouth to filter the worst of the particles. Strange insects buzzed nearby, some glowing, others cloaked in camouflage that flickered unnaturally. He didn't trust anything, and that instinct saved him. Ahead, a patch of flora looked wrong, the color too dark, the movement too still. Military instinct kicked in. He picked up a stone and lobbed it into the zone. Instantly, the vegetation erupted, releasing a jet of dark spores that hissed as they dissolved the rock midair. "That's definitely not part of the standard obstacle course," Jason muttered, coughing. Someone had modified the trial, again. But he didn't stop. He circled the death trap, moving low, using instinct and memory of battlefield terrain to chart a safe path. His vision swam. His skin itched from exposure. His muscles screamed for rest. Still, he pushed forward. By the 12th hour, he found it, a circular clearing in the heart of the dome where a floating crystal hovered inside a beam of golden light, the emblem of convergence. Jason stepped toward it, but movement in the corner of his eye made him freeze. A hidden wall panel had slid open. Vaker, the Azurian who had opposed Jason from the beginning, taller, broader, with sharper markings and cold burning eyes. In his hand, a control device. "You weren't supposed to make it this far," Vikor growled, activating the device. The environment reacted instantly. The temperature surged. The vegetation twisted and shriveled. The air grew acidic, searing Jason's throat with every breath. Jason lunged forward, snatched the emblem, and rolled behind a rock outcrop as the ground around him turned black and cracked. The chamber was overloading. A voice called out from behind the chaos, "Jason!" He looked up, stunned. Serenia had entered, clad in a minimal rebreather suit. Her hair clung to her neck, her markings pulsing with urgency. "You're not supposed to be here," he shouted through the burning air. "You're not supposed to be dying either," she countered, reaching him. A deep rumble shook the chamber. A massive vent near the ceiling cracked open, spewing superheated gas. Serenia ripped her mask off and shoved it onto Jason's face. "Breathe." He did, and clarity returned, but she coughed violently. Her own breathing labored without protection. Jason grabbed her hand. "We need to move. Now." Together they sprinted for the nearest maintenance tunnel, Jason half carrying her as the chamber around them fell apart. The air shimmered with static. Cracks spidered along the walls. Explosions burst in distant corners. They dove into the corridor just as the chamber collapsed behind them in a wave of fire and dust. They stumbled into a secure zone moments later. Serenia collapsed, gasping. Her skin had dulled, markings pulsing erratically. Jason caught her in his arms. "Medical. Where's your med bay?" She pointed weakly. "Down the corridor. Hurry." He didn't hesitate. With the emblem of convergence clutched in one hand and Serenia in the other, Jason ran. Later, inside the regeneration chamber, as she floated in bioluminescent fluid, Jason stood by the glass, unmoving. The elders approached. "You completed the trial," one said, "and prevented catastrophe." Jason didn't look away from Serenia. "I didn't care about the trial. I cared about her." The elder's eyes softened. "Then perhaps you've already passed the most important test of all." Chapter 6, The Trial of Union. The ceremonial chamber was unlike anything Jason had seen in the Azurian settlement. It was circular, carved into polished white stone that shimmered with iridescent veins. The light here didn't come from fixtures. It radiated from the walls themselves, pulsing in harmony with the quiet thrumming beneath Jason's feet. It felt alive. The emblem of convergence rested in his palm, still warm from the heart of the living forge. Across the chamber, Serenia stood in a flowing ceremonial robe that clung to her like liquid shadow, her markings glowing a gentle blue-green, subdued but steady. Her eyes found his, and something passed between them. Not words, not even thoughts, just understanding. The elders stood in a half-circle behind her, their faces solemn, their robes woven with patterns that shimmered like starlight. "The final trial begins now," the eldest intoned. "The union is sacred. It is not a test of strength or endurance, but of compatibility, mind, spirit, and essence. A bonding not just of two individuals, but of two souls across worlds." Jason stepped forward, bare feet on stone that somehow adjusted to his weight. His Azurian-style garment, dark and fitted, clung lightly to his frame. To his surprise, the fabric was beginning to shift color and pulse faintly, echoing the patterns of Serenia's own. They met in the center, standing an arm's length apart. Serenia's voice was soft. "Once we begin, there is no turning back. This isn't a ritual for appearance. It's permanent." Jason swallowed. No pressure. A flicker of amusement crossed her lips, but her eyes remained serious. "If our minds reject each other, the bond will fail. There will be pain, possibly scarring. Rejection on this level isn't just emotional." He reached out, brushing his fingers across the back of her hand. "I'm not afraid of scars. I've carried yours in my mind for 10 years. The silence that followed was thick with emotion. The elder stepped forward. "Begin the first phase, communion of thought." Mist swirled up from the floor, cool and luminous. It rose slowly, enveloping them in a cloud that shimmered with soft pulses of violet and silver. Jason felt it immediately, like a gentle tug behind his eyes, a warmth pressing into the edges of his consciousness. "Don't resist," Serenia whispered. "Let it in. Let me in." He closed his eyes and breathed, and suddenly he wasn't alone. Memories flooded him, not his own, hers. He saw her childhood beneath a sky of 3 moons, the stern face of her mother, her first flight training, the moment she was promoted to commander. And then, him, a boy throwing rocks, a kiss on the cheek, the image of her watching the stars again and again, wondering if he would return. Serenia, he felt her presence brighten inside him. Then his own memories opened. Boot camp, war zones, loss, his father's departure, the fear he'd never be enough, but also hope. The night sky, her voice echoing in his dream, their thoughts twined together like streams converging into a river. When the mist faded, they stood breathless, eyes wide. The elder's voice trembled slightly. "Communion is complete, rare, fully synchronous." Jason turned to Serenia. "You saw everything?" She nodded, and felt it. "Are you—" "I'm still here." A weight lifted from his chest. The second elder stepped forward. Phase 2, harmony of spirit. The lights in the chamber shifted, turning a rich indigo hue. Their garments responded, flowing like liquid, the colors blending and reconfiguring into a shared, mirrored pattern. Jason looked down and realized his skin was faintly glowing, thin, faint lines running down his forearms, echoing the markings on Serenia's. He looked up at her in wonder. "Your body is responding," she said quietly. "Not just mimicking, resonating. That's never happened before." Their energy began to pulse in unison. Jason didn't know how he knew it, but he felt it, like a second heartbeat, matched perfectly to hers. The elder was visibly stunned. A human spirit matching Azurian resonance? Impossible. And yet, here they were. "Harmony is achieved," she said, her voice soft with reverence. The light shifted again, this time to a warm amber. "Final phase," the elder said. "Union of essence. Traditionally done in private, but witnessed in part to confirm connection." Serenia stepped forward, eyes searching Jason's. "Place your hand over my heart." He did. Her skin was hot, like the sun-warmed stones of Proxima's cliffs. She placed her hand over his chest in turn. A wave of energy surged through them both. The chamber blurred, or maybe it didn't. Maybe their awareness simply shifted. Visions spilled into his mind of possible futures. He saw Serenia standing with him on Earth, bewildered by rain. He saw himself on her homeworld, struggling with her language but laughing. He saw them, older, stronger, arguing, reconciling, holding each other through loss, raising children, some golden-skinned, some pale, all with eyes that shimmered violet in the light. The visions faded. The silence returned. Jason looked at her. Was that real? Potential, she said. But it felt real to me, too. The elder raised her hand. The union is complete. Their resonance is unique, unprecedented, and unmistakably genuine. The chamber erupted in a soft glow, concentric rings spreading from their feet like ripples in water. The elders bowed their heads in silence. Jason turned to Serenia, unsure if he should speak, but she stepped close, her breath warm against his cheek. "You came back," she murmured, "not just as a man, but as my equal." He smiled, overwhelmed, heart thudding. "So, does that mean I finally get my reward?" She leaned in, her voice low, rich with promise. "Jason Carter," she whispered, "we've only just begun." Chapter 7, A Prophecy Ignited. The ceremonial chamber had barely begun to dim when the silence shattered. An explosion rocked the eastern wing of the Azurian settlement. Jason spun instinctively, positioning himself between Serenia and the source of the blast. From the far quarter, alarms wailed in a shrill, pulsing tone he hadn't heard before, deeper and more urgent than any he'd experienced during military service. "Emergency override," one of the elders barked, markings flaring crimson. "Seal the chamber." But it was already too late. The sanctuary doors burst open, and Vacor stormed in, flanked by 3 Azurian radicals clad in unauthorized armor. They carried compact plasma rifles, all aimed directly at Jason and Serenia. "The abomination ends now," Vacor snarled, his eyes glowing with unnatural intensity. Jason's body responded before his mind fully caught up. He stepped forward, hands half raised in a defensive posture. "Stand down, Vacor. There's still time to—" "You corrupt everything," Vacor roared, jabbing a finger at him. "This union spits in the face of Azurian purity. A human? Bonded to our commander?" Serenia's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "I chose him. And that is exactly why you must be removed," Vacor hissed. "You've lost your way. You've made us weak." Jason felt the pressure building in his chest, not fear, but anger. Controlled, focused, the same calm before combat that had carried him through war zones. But Serenia stepped forward, markings glowing in tandem with Jason's own. "You don't understand," she said, voice steady. "This bond, this union, it wasn't just about tradition. It was real. It resonated beyond us." "Lies," one of Vacor's guards growled. "Propaganda." But then something happened. Jason raised his hand, so did Serenia, and as their fingers touched, a pulse of energy erupted from their bodies. A wave of violet and silver light that shimmered through the chamber, knocking the assailants back like a shockwave. Their weapons clattered to the floor, deactivated, sizzling on contact with the stone. Everyone froze. Even Vacor looked shaken. "What is this?" he whispered. From the edge of the chamber, the eldest elder stepped forward, her expression unreadable. She moved slowly, reverently, until she stood before Jason and Serenia. Her eyes traveled down to their joined hands in the brilliant, synchronized markings that flared with every breath they took. She whispered a single word: "The joining of stars." The room fell completely still. Jason blinked. "What does that mean?" The elder turned to face the gathering. Her voice echoed with a power deeper than authority. "Etisamori, faith. There is a prophecy," she said slowly, "older than our modern language, passed down not through records, but through ritual. It speaks of 2 souls from distant skies, whose union would light the path between worlds, a bridge born not of politics, but of essence." Vacor staggered back. "A myth. A warning," she countered. "Or perhaps a promise." Jason looked at Serenia. Her face had paled slightly, but her gaze never left the elder. You think that's us? He asked. The elder tilted her head. Tell me, Jason Carter, when you touched her hand just now, what did you feel? He hesitated. Power. Not mine. Not hers. Ours. The elder's markings flared in confirmation. No ritual in living memory has created such resonance, and no human has ever absorbed Azurian markings. Your essence is adapting. This isn't just biology, it's destiny. Vector tried to lunge, but Jason stepped forward, his new markings flaring. With a simple gesture, he disarmed the remaining assailants. It wasn't force, it was command. Serenya's voice was soft but lethal. You're done, Vekor. Security guards arrived moments later, weapons drawn, armor gleaming. Vekor glared at Jason one last time. This changes nothing. You're wrong, Jason said. This changes everything. 3 days later, the Azurian Council convened in the Sky Hall, a chamber open to the stars. Jason sat beside Serenia, not behind her, not apart, but beside, equal, unified. Representatives from Earth were present, beamed in via hologram. So were envoys from other neutral systems, curious and cautious. The news of the human Azurian union had spread faster than anyone expected, and with it, the whispers of prophecy. This is no longer a personal bond, one counselor said, his tone wary. This is a political shift. The joining of stars implies more than love. It suggests convergence of culture, of law, of future. Jason stood. His voice was calm, clear. I'm not here to replace your culture or rewrite your traditions. I'm just a man who kept a promise and found something worth changing for. He looked at Serenia. She asked me to return when I became a man. What neither of us knew was that we'd both become more than what we were. Together. The room was silent until the elder rose once more. This council recognizes the legitimacy of the union, and by the ancient rites, the bond is not just personal, it is symbolic. A new era begins today. Jason didn't fully understand the political machinery that followed. The trade agreements, the shared research initiatives, the proposed co-governance of a neutral colony world. But he did understand this. The bond he and Serenia shared had opened a door that could never be closed again. Later that night, Jason and Serenia stood on the observation deck of the settlement's highest spire. Below them, the city shimmered in bioluminescent light. Above, the stars stretched on forever. She reached for his hand. Do you regret it? She asked. He shook his head. Not for a second. Her voice softened. They called it a prophecy. But for me, it was just a feeling that the boy who saved me would become the only one strong enough to change our world. Jason leaned closer, his markings glowing in time with hers. Then let's keep changing it. Together. And under the twin moons of Proxima Centauri b, they kissed. No longer separated by species or history, but united by choice. By love. By fate. Chapter 8. Bridge between stars. 1 Earth year later. The twin suns of Alpha Centauri, A and B, hung low in the sky, casting soft gold and crimson hues across the cliffs that line the ocean. From their vantage point, high above the shoreline in a house carved into stone and glass, Jason Carter and Serenia watched the light spill into the horizon. Their home was quiet, not in a cold or sterile way, but in that rare, intimate stillness that only comes from deep companionship. A home earned, a home shared. Jason stood barefoot on the balcony, a warm breeze tousling his now slightly longer hair. His markings, once faint, now shimmered permanently beneath his skin, alive with a rhythm that pulsed in harmony with the world around him. And with her. Serenia stepped beside him, her robe flowing around her like silk spun from starlight. The pendant he'd given her, a spiral of Azurian crystal with a strand of Earth's rarest metals, rested against her collarbone, pulsing softly in sync with her markings. Happy Union Day, she said, her voice low and musical. Jason smiled. That's the 3rd time this year we've celebrated it. Her lips curved. Azurian cycle, Earth calendar, an Alpha Centauri rotational tradition. Blame the diplomats. Diplomats or not, I'm not complaining. He reached into his pocket and produced a small box wrapped in luminescent cloth. You ready for your gift? Her eyes brightened. You remembered? Of course I did. He placed the box in her hands. She opened it slowly, reverently. Inside was a thin metallic bracelet. When she touched it, the bands lit up, forming the exact constellation pattern visible in the sky the night they completed the union ritual. Her voice caught. "It's beautiful." Jason leaned in. "Not as beautiful as the one wearing it." She arched a brow. "You've gotten better at this." 10 years of training, he said, plus diplomatic coaching. And I married a tough audience. She laughed and pulled him close, their foreheads touching, their breath sinking. Later that day, they stood in front of a small gathering on a neutral orbital station. Representatives from Earth, Azurian enclaves, and other allied species. Below them, the blue-green sphere of Earth turned slowly. Beyond, Alpha Centauri shimmered in its twin-star brilliance. The occasion, the first official interspecies alliance treaty, built on more than politics. It was built on them. A banner above the atrium bore the words, "The Bridge Between Stars." All right, Jason adjusted his collar and whispered, "You realize they're turning us into a legend." Serenia smirked. "Let them. We earned it." They stepped forward as dignitaries handed them tablets inscribed with both human and Azurian scripts. One by one they placed their thumbprints, his plain and firm, hers glowing and intricate, side by side. The treaty was sealed. The crowd erupted in a hushed cheer. That night, their ship descended into the atmosphere of Alpha Centauri Prime, a colony world shared between human and Azurian settlers. It was here, on a stretch of coastline where desert met sea, that they'd chosen to make their home. Serenia stood at the edge of their private cliffside balcony, her hair dancing in the wind. Jason came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "Still feels surreal," he murmured. "Because it is," she replied. "We were never supposed to find each other, never supposed to bond, but we did. And now we get to build something new." She turned in his arms, eyes soft. "Jason, that day, 10 years ago, when you threw stones at armed mercenaries to save me, did you ever think it would lead here?" He chuckled. "Honestly, I just hoped I wouldn't get shot." She laughed, but her voice turned serious. "You changed me that day. I didn't understand it at the time. But something in you called to something in me. We were never meant to be part of the old world. We were meant to make a new one." Jason leaned in, their foreheads touching again. "I don't care about species or planets. I care about you." Their markings pulsed in unison, and for a moment the balcony lit with soft light, silent, wordless affirmation of a bond that had only grown stronger with time. 1 year later, in their shared garden, half Earth flora, half Azurian bioluminescent plants, Jason sat cross-legged in the grass, a small child curled against his side. The child's skin shimmered with golden undertones, her dark hair threaded with strands of silver. Her violet eyes sparkled with curiosity as she poked a glowing leaf. "Daddy," she said, "can I go watch the moons come up?" Jason grinned. "If you let me come with you." The girl nodded enthusiastically. From the doorway, Serenia watched them, her arms folded, a quiet smile on her lips. Her gaze met Jason's, and in that look was everything they'd shared. Battles, trials, passion, politics, and the fragile beginnings of peace. He rose and took her hand. Their daughter darted ahead toward the cliffs, laughing. They followed together, two souls who had once been separated by stars, now united not just by love, but by legacy. As the dual moons rose above the water, casting silver trails across the sea, Jason whispered against Serenia's temple, "Worth coming back for?" She smiled, her voice a gentle hum. "Worth rewriting destiny for." And beneath the stars they had once only dreamed of, the bridge between worlds held strong, anchored not in stone or treaty, but in the hearts of two beings who chose love over fear, connection over tradition, and each other above all else. Epilogue. Echoes in the void. The universe has a sound, not in the way humans understand sound, not vibrations through air, but a kind of resonance, a harmony of gravity and light, of particles brushing against the edge of silence. And somewhere out there, amidst that endless cosmic hum, two lives moved in tune with each other. Jason Carter sat alone in the observation deck of their orbital garden station, gazing out at the swirling, galactic sprawl beyond the transparent dome. Stars blinked like ancient secrets, and the arc of Alpha Centauri b painted the sky in amber blue hues. He wasn't waiting for anything, not exactly, but he felt it, a pull, a familiar one. Footsteps approached from behind, soft, unhurried, unmistakable. He didn't turn. He didn't need to. "You were quiet tonight," Serenia said, settling beside him, her robes brushing softly against his arm, even during the summit wrap-up. Jason exhaled, watching a comet arc through the stars. "Just thinking." "Dangerous," she teased, bumping his shoulder gently. He smiled, but the smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "I was remembering that first day. The crash, the heat, the way the air tried to boil my lungs." He paused. "And the way you looked at me like I was either the dumbest or the bravest creature in your entire galaxy." She chuckled, her voice low and warm. "Why not both?" Jason turned to her. Her markings glowed softly, pulsing in rhythm with his own. No matter how many years passed, it still made his breath hitch. "You kissed my cheek and vanished, and that moment haunted me for a decade." "I know," she said quietly. "It haunted me too." He turned back toward the stars. "You ever wonder," he asked, "what would have happened if I never came back?" She didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was barely a whisper. "I think I would have spent the rest of my life watching the sky and wondering who you might have become." Jason reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining. "We changed the course of two civilizations, you know? And it all started because a scared kid picked up a rock. That scared kid," she said, "became the man who saved us all, again and again." They sat in silence for a long moment, their bond humming softly beneath the skin, heartbeats sinking. Then a new sound pierced the quiet, a faint chime. Jason tapped the interface embedded in his wrist. A transmission blinked to life, a message relayed from the far edge of Azurian deep space territory. Serenia leaned closer, eyes narrowing slightly. Jason's brows furrowed. The message was brief, urgent. Unidentified vessel approaching outer beacon. No response to hails. Movement pattern erratic. Biosignatures unfamiliar. Serenia stood slowly, tension rippling through her shoulders. "That's not one of ours," she murmured. Jason rose beside her, "or anyone we've ever cataloged." Their eyes met. Neither spoke what they were thinking. Not human, not Azurian, not known. A moment passed. Then Jason nodded. "Let's suit up." Serenia didn't hesitate. 10 hours later, edge of Azurian space, the sleek scout vessel shimmered through the black, its hull marked by both Earth alloys and Azurian crystal matrices, a true hybrid, just like its crew. Jason stood at the helm, suit sealed, weapons offline, but power primed. Serenia stood beside him, her fingers dancing over the sensor panel. "There," she pointed. "It's not hostile, not yet, but it's scanning something." Jason squinted at the data readouts. "That language isn't in any database." The unknown ship hovered, silent and eerie. Its form was fluid, almost organic, like it had grown rather than been built. And then it pulsed, once, twice, and then it spoke. Not in English, not in Azurian, not in sound, but through the bond. Jason staggered, Serenia gasped. Two who should not have met, two who became one. "You lit the path, now others are watching." Jason caught Serenia's arm. "Did you?" She nodded, eyes wide. "It spoke into us." But the transmission continued, not words, but emotion, curiosity, reverence, something ancient and vast. And finally, when "You are not the end of prophecy, you are the beginning." The vessel shimmered, and then it was gone, as if it had folded through space or vanished into another layer of reality. Silence returned. Jason and Serenia stood still for a long time, the stars swirling around them. Then Serenia spoke, her voice tight with awe. "Jason, I think the universe just answered." Oops. Jason exhaled, slow and sure. "Then maybe it's time we ask more questions." She smiled. "Together?" He squeezed her hand, their bond glowing like stardust under their skin. "Always." And so we end tonight's tale beneath the endless tapestry of stars. Remember, the universe holds mysteries beyond our dreams, but the greatest mystery is often closer than we think, the human heart. Thank you for journeying with us on Beyond the Stars. If tonight's adventure touched your soul, like, share, and subscribe for more cosmic stories that remind us all, we're never truly alone in this vast universe. Until we meet again, travelers, keep your eyes to the skies and your hearts open wide. Good night, and may your dreams carry you far, beyond the stars.